Yeah, I think it all comes back to being of service, and that's why I love coaching so much, because it's a similar philosophy, right? We're helping people get better, and the clients that I work with, I want them to be the absolute best version of themselves as a leader at work, as a leader at home. So that's why I'm so passionate and so invested with the people that I work in, because leadership takes on many different forms. So whatever your challenge is or whatever we need to focus on, we're going to do it to the best of your ability, and I'm in your corner to make it happen.
The ability to navigate constant change and unlock the true potential of your team is more critical than ever. That's why I'm so excited to bring you a conversation with someone who has built their career on doing just that. I'm delighted to introduce my latest guest on the podcast, Chris March. Chris is a seasoned leadership and executive coach with a wealth of experience spanning over 2 decades across multiple continents, including Australia, England, and Canada. His extensive background in the travel industry has given him a unique perspective on navigating fast-paced, ever-changing environments, a skill he now brings into his coaching practice. As a certified executive coach and a master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, Chris is passionate about empowering professionals to lead with confidence and unlock their full potential. He has been featured in publications like Yahoo Finance and is a regular guest on podcasts where he shares his insights on leadership, team building, and personal development. Join us in our conversation as we delve into Chris's leadership journey and how coaching can be a powerful tool for personal and professional growth.
To take it back from the start, I grew up, I wanted to be a professional basketball player, didn't quite make that. And once that didn't pan out, I started working in the real estate industry, I should say. And then one of my best friends around that time, his sister lived in the UK, and it's a rite of passage to live in the UK, right? And that was really the catalyst for all this travel that I've done following that. So we lived in the UK for 2 years, came back after 2 incredible years living in London, traveling all extensively through Europe, had all my boys from high school move over. At some point, we lived in a 2-bedroom flat with 15 people. You know how the story goes. And then we moved back to Sydney, and I just wanted a different change of life. By that point, I'd really just got the travel bug and I was inspired. So within 12 months, I booked a one-way to Vancouver, British Columbia at that point, and met my sister there who lived in the UK. So we lived together for a year. She ended up returning back to Australia. I, by that point, had started working on my own professional career and wanted to move into more senior roles. 2 years turned into 4 years, 4 years turned into 6 years. And then I asked if they'd sponsor me. They sponsored me, became a PR, permanent resident of Canada. And around 2017, I was asked to be relocated from Vancouver to Toronto with the organization I was working with. On the back of my travel, I started working in the travel industry upon my return from the UK to Sydney. And that's where I started my 17-year career in the travel industry. They sponsored me. Flight Centre is the organization that I work with. And then 2017, they relocated me from Vancouver to Toronto as the business dynamics changed. They wanted to move their head office out there. And I was living in Toronto up until March of this year, and I just recently returned to Australia after 16 years in Canada, returning as a dual Canadian-Australian, and I feel very much more Canadian because I moved to Canada when I was 26, and those have been the most formative years of my life. I grew up in Canada in a lot of different ways, and I'm coming back to Australia as a different version of myself. So it's beautiful in a lot of different ways. I'm spending more time with my family. I'm appreciating the different things that I'm fortunate to grow up with and fortunate to be able to see every day. It's truly a blessing. It's beautiful.
You've set the scene perfectly, because there were a couple of things that I was hoping to talk to you about in particular. So this podcast is all about leadership and it's all about coaching. So you're an executive leadership coach, so you're absolutely the right kind of person to come on here. But what I'm really interested about more so since I've started doing this podcast, is that it's shown me different aspects of leadership and different aspects of coaching outside of the industries that I've been familiar with and in different countries around the world. I've only ever lived in the UK. And I think as we move from role to role, and perhaps as we move from country to country, you'll be able to tell me, we pick up experiences, we change as people. In some ways, at the core, we're the same. And some of those early formative experiences stay with us, but we evolve in some ways. So I'm really keen to hear what are like the universal things, what comes up everywhere around the world in every industry, when you're coaching or when you're leading, but also what's a bit more niche and maybe only works somewhere. So, I mean, I don't know where you want to start with that. It's not even a proper question, but I think you know what I'm getting at, Chris.
Yeah.
What are the, let's start with the universals. What comes up everywhere?
It's a great question. I think at the end of the day, culturally, there's differences between Canada, the US, the UK. These are all countries that I've worked in, and Australia. However, fundamentally, we're humans at the end of the day. And I think leadership, we've overcomplicated leadership in a lot of different ways. We're in such a rich information period, right? We have so many different opinions, so many different outlets, and I believe we've overcomplicated leadership. And at its simplest form, it's about helping other people towards a common goal and helping them become better. And from country to country, city to city, that hasn't changed. People want to be cared for, they want to be nurtured, they want to be heard, they want to be valued. So your edge as a leader, no matter where I've gone, has always been to lead into being human.
What about the communication style, though? Because there are maybe some cultures where a more direct approach is common, others where that might be considered a bit rude. Maybe you have to tiptoe around subjects a little bit more.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've just moved back to Australia, as I mentioned earlier, and I find Australians are a lot more direct, for sure, than, let's say, Canadians. They're globally known as being polite. I find with Canadians, they typically will tell you something's okay, and then tell someone separately that things aren't okay. They're not as direct. They're not as vulnerable or being open with certain things. Where Australians, if you have a conversation, what's going on, they'll tell you. Or they'll tell you, how am I doing as your leader? You're doing a good job, Chris. You're doing a good job. Where Canadians, I feel, are more inclined to be polite when it comes to that type of feedback. I'm not generalizing. I'm just from what I've seen, and American, from my experience as well, are very, very much direct. It's very cutthroat there compared to other markets because it's very entrepreneurial in the US, right? The American dream, they're very supported. The structure, the systems are set up that way for people to succeed in a lot of different ways. Say whatever you want to say politically about the US and everything else that's going on there. They support a vision and a dream for people to be successful, right? So I think that is definitely supported more so, and in Canada and in Australians, they're just very direct, and I appreciate that. And I feel with my experiences, I'm kind of discombobulated in a lot of different ways coming back to Australia and just readjusting my understanding of how Australians react and interact in business scenarios.
And it's important to realize those differences. And like I said, there's a fine line between stereotyping, and obviously we don't want to go there, but the reality is you do need to understand, particularly in coaching, you need to understand the communication style, and it's okay to appreciate there's a difference. So I would always start with a pretty big conversation right at the start about, hey, how do you want this relationship to play out? How direct, where's your level? Give me some feedback about how you want to be engaged with right at the start. And I find that's always helpful in a coaching relationship.
I completely agree, because it's a one-to-one relationship. If we're talking one-to-one executive coaching or leadership coaching, if you're working with someone who's invested the money to coach, typically they're going to be bought in to that. If you're working with an organization and they've paid for the development of the coaching for that individual, I've done that as well. And it's important to understand whoever you're working with is what is their unique position and how you're going to work together. And it comes by framing the expectations and understanding from their perspective, how do you want to work? Have you worked with a coach before? What are the success metrics that we're going to work towards? How do you want to work together? It is a collaborative process that we're going to be going through. I'm just as interested in hearing what's going to work from you and how I can better support you, because as a coach, I'm of service to you.
Absolutely, yeah. And is most of your coaching one-to-one, or do you do team as well?
Yeah, primarily the focus is one-to-one. I've done team coaching, I've done group coaching. I enjoy all the different facets, but mostly one-on-one is what I find myself doing.
And when did you make the change into being a coach? Presumably you didn't wake up one day when you were a kid thinking, "Hey, I want to be a coach when I'm
Let's
older."
do that.
So, or
Let's
maybe
do
you
that.
did. But yeah, when did it kind of evolve from presumably a leadership role, or maybe
Yep.
not, but into a coaching role?
So, as I mentioned earlier, I worked in the travel industry for a long period of time. And if we go back to 2020, the pandemic period, no industries were harder hit than tourism and hospitality. I was based in Toronto at that time, living alone, was a senior leader in one of the corporate divisions of Flight Center at that point. And as the pandemic continued to prolong, we thought it was going to be a month, and then it was 3 months, then it was 6 months, then it was 12 months. We had to furlough 90% of our staff, which was a devastating period and something I can write a book about one day. However, as we continued to go through that process as an organization, there was very limited revenue coming through outside of required travel. So as that continued to happen, there was conversations internally around, can we keep the lights on? Will we have to shut down the organization as a whole? So there were some very preliminary conversations. We were told that have us start thinking about potentially what is a plan B. And that's something that I hadn't really wrestled with. And I helped support a lot of people who were let go during that time, which was absolutely devastating. I had a lot of friends in the travel industry and I saw their 10, 12, 14, 15, 20-year career just go. And it was just devastating. And I was very fortunate to be able to be held on. And for me, that discovery of what I wanted to do next was made through that period when I wasn't sure if I was going to make it through either. So I did a lot of inner work. I was in a condo by myself or a complete lockdown. I had so much time on my hands to really think about things. So I asked friends, family, colleagues, what do I do well? What do you see me doing next? And everything came back to a helping modality, mentorship, something along those lines. So I considered psychology, considered counseling, and then I had a friend, funnily enough, who, for your UK audience, you'll be familiar with Jay Shetty. Jay Shetty's a big public figure now. He's got his own podcast, written multiple books. He had a coaching certification school that my friends who I met through work, she and I were having conversations around me joining that, and that was the catalyst for me to start coaching. So I entered into that program, became certified through that school, and just started coaching anyone and everyone during the pandemic who would allow me to. And that's really where it started in 2021.
Quite a conscious change then, and a sort of a reframing of your whole career trajectory. It wasn't like sort of slid into it. So for me, it was more of evolution. I've always done a sort of coaching informally well before I was sort of trained and really knew what I was doing and became a mentor and then qualified. This sounds like you actually really sort of sat down and thought about it, thought, where are my strengths at? I'm going to make a pivot here, and sort of threw yourself into it.
Yeah, and I also think, to your point, I think I was coaching in a lot of different ways. As a leader, I really took pride in being a great leader. So I believe that I was coaching when I was coming up as a leader and also working through the disciplines as I moved into different roles. However, once I formalized that, I was doing some form of coaching, but I wasn't really doing it in the true sense that I'd be trained on over the next couple of years. So there was
Sure.
foundationally some parts of coaching there, but it was really kind of mapped out once I started working with the Jay Shetty coaching school, and then subsequently I knew following that I wanted to focus on executive coaching. So at the start of 2022, I enrolled in the Center for Executive Coaching program, which is one of the best renowned executive coaching programs in the US and globally.
Sure, yeah, and I get what you're saying. You're coaching as a leader. Clearly, this is one of your strengths and sort of an attribute you've got. And I think all great leaders coach, through their leadership. I mean, I could go on about that, but I would rather hear about your philosophy on leadership. You mentioned when we first started talking that leadership has got overcomplicated, and I just sort of wanted to pin that, and I'd like to come back to that and just sort of kind of explore what's the Chris March simplified philosophy on leadership, and what do you try and encourage others to do?
Leadership is about helping people get better. Leadership is an action. It's a verb. You don't need a title to be a leader. You're a leader to your partner, to your family, to your friends, through your actions. That's good leadership. And not everyone wants to be a leader or have the title to be a leader from a corporate perspective, but we do it every single day. For the people that are in a position of power where you are a leadership role, and I say the position of power because leadership is a privilege. It's a privilege for you to lead others. And wherever you're meeting those people at, that's your ultimate goal. Is whatever your business unit, your team looks like, your role is to help them centralize work towards a goal collectively. And then subsequently, individually, what does that individual contributor do to work towards the common goal? And what can you do as a leader to help them optimize the performance they're giving at work and also at home? Because those two parts are important. You also have to care about the person that shows up at work every day, not just the person who comes and delivers the hours that is required of the role.
Sounds like a philosophy rooted in leadership in service of people.
Correct.
Rather than, yeah, absolutely. Where did that come from you? If you wind the clock back, Chris, where did you kind of evolve that philosophy of leadership from?
I would put a lot of it around my grandmother. I grew up, my grandmother was one of the most compassionate, kind people that I've ever met. And when I looked up to role models in my life, she was one of those central figures. And I always took the philosophy of, as I was growing up as a leader myself in different roles, that I'd want to be the leader that I would want for myself. It seems so simple, but it's always been true. I'd want to be the leader that I'd want for myself. And for me, that comes from a lens of being caring, being kind, being curious, and just helping. And coming back to that simplicity, a part of leadership is helping people become better. I want to know about you as a person. Lee, tell me about your family. Why do you come to work every day? What are we working towards, Lee? Do you want to buy a house? Are you here because you want my role? Tell me more, Lee. Like, tell me why are you here every single day? That's really the lens that I've always come from leadership. And leadership is a privilege that a lot of people do take for granted, and people are put in those leadership roles because they perform well in sales or different aspects of the business. Doesn't always mean you're going to be great when it comes to people, because leadership is people. People is about service.
Quite often, I find that sometimes the person who was an expert as an individual contributor who then becomes the leader actually struggles, because the default behavior when things are going tough is to kind of slip back into doing the role below.
Correct.
Leaders need something else. They need that, yeah, as you said, the appreciation of the people, to get the best out of the people, support them to do that role rather than slipping back and doing it themselves. And it's no surprise to hear that linkage from you in the way you've described your decision to become a coach, coming from a position of a leader whose philosophy is around leadership in service. That makes perfect sense. I can see how that would have been a natural transition for you. Hello, I have an update from Level Up. www.levelupleadership.uk is now the main hub for Level Up. You can still follow the podcast wherever you usually listen, and you can still connect and engage on LinkedIn. But Level Up Leadership, that's all one word, levelupleadership.uk will now be our central hub for all of our content. Head over there now and don't forget to follow so you never miss an article. Thanks. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, I think it all comes back to being of service, and that's why I love coaching so much, because it's a similar philosophy, right? We're helping people get better, and the clients that I work with, I want them to be the absolute best version of themselves as a leader at work, as a leader at home. So that's why I'm so passionate and so invested with the people that I work in, because leadership takes on many different forms. So whatever your challenge is or whatever we need to focus on, we're going to do it to the best of your ability, and I'm in your corner to make it happen.
And how's the coaching going? You've been doing it for a few years now then as your primary career by the sounds of it. So yeah, how's it going and what's coming up for people?
It's going great. I've been fortunate, as I said, I've seen it evolve through my own eyes, take me back to the pandemic where I was begging anyone and everyone to coach for free, and I've been able to build that up to work with over 100 people now, different organizations in Canada, the US, been able to speak on different stages about coaching as well, and I just really just excited about where I'm at and the future that's in front of me as well. I think there's a lot of work for great coaches. We're in a very unique time and landscape with where we're at with AI. There's a lot of uncertainty questions around that. There's also a lot of leadership gaps right now across the world. I think it was Gallup that recently shared a global workplace report. Global engagement globally is 21%. Let that sink in for a second, everyone. 21%. The lost productivity around that, I can't remember the exact number. I believe it's somewhere around 4 trillion. Somewhere it's a massive, massive number. So there's an opportunity for people in the leadership space, in the personal development space, to help correct everything that is not working right now. So I'm excited for what's ahead. I think there's enough work for all of us. We all can win as coaches. There's a lot of different coaches out there. But for me, I'm just excited to grow myself and to grow the people that I'm fortunate to work with over the next 5 to 10 years. Because just to add one last point is the leadership playbook that we've known up until this point is going to be completely rewritten.
I couldn't agree more. I assume you're talking about AI in part, amongst other things, but AI is just going to be such a game changer, isn't it? I mean, yeah, people are afraid of it, people are excited about it, and everything in between.
Yes.
People are using it, people don't know how to use it. Some people are fantastic at integrating it, and we don't know what's yet to come. So I think we've got a roller coaster ahead of us. Yeah, I mean, what's your take, Chris? Where are you on that spectrum?
I'm excited. I'm excited for it. I think it's similar to the internet when it first came on in the early 2000s. There was all this uncertainty. People were scared of it. The Y2K, I remember myself, I'm old enough, and hopefully most of your audience is as well. There was a lot of apprehension, standoffishness with the internet. However, we wouldn't be here today. People wouldn't be listening. You and I wouldn't be connecting without it. And I think AI is going to be a complete game changer. No one has a crystal ball, of course. No one has a crystal ball. But I think it's going to amplify people to be better in business and better humans overall, because we're going to remove the mundane and the tasks that we don't like to do and pass it off to AI for us to be better at what we need to do and the things that AI cannot do.
Exactly. You've got to let the tech do what tech does best, so that humans can do what humans do best.
Correct.
My cards are on the table, and I've spoken about this in other podcasts. I absolutely embrace AI. I do have some words of caution around there, and I do think we need to be very careful and ethical around how we use it in creative ways, or whether we should use it in creative ways. But when it comes to productivity, and when it comes to those sort of routine, mundane tasks that can just be done repetitively, I think it's an absolute game changer. I've started using AI as a coach. So I'm sure you do something similar. You have records and notes on your clients and what they're
Yeah.
working on and what their goals are. When you're in the room, it's a human interaction, and you're not
Correct.
asking the perfect question for a crib sheet like an AI would. You're still that human coach with your empathy and appreciating what's going on in the dynamic between you. But when you're preparing and when you're looking back, having an AI notebook style tool that will draw links for you, remind you certain things, and help you prepare, that's absolutely revolutionized how I can keep track of what's going on with my clients. So I use AI straight away in that way, and I use it in many other ways in my day job, in my leadership role. How have you started to embrace AI? Sounds like you're keen.
Yeah, similar to you as well. I use a note taker, AI note taker, so it's just brilliant in that regard. I'm trying to think of what life was before we had note taker, right? Because you can just focus on in a coaching session on the person in front of you. You don't need to worry about notes. Everything will be taken care of. It will outline what's been discussed, what are the next steps, the timelines of everything as well. So I think it's absolutely brilliant. The best way I think AI is it amplifies your brilliance, whatever that area is. So I use it for my coaching. I use it in my own life. This morning, I've created some prompts, some journal prompts that I use every single morning. So I do that in the morning. I do that in the evening as well. I use that for AI for ideation, for content. I post content regularly on LinkedIn. I validate certain ideas there as well. I don't let it do the content, but I make sure that it generates different ideas. So it's a powerful tool. I think it is a collaboratively thought partner to help speed up the process overall. So it's really hard to imagine life without AI moving forward. So I'm excited. I get to see a lot inside of a lot of different businesses as well. So it's coming up a lot. I work with a lot of AI driven businesses as well. So the appetite is certainly there. And I'm just excited for it to see how it can impact businesses over the next 5 to 10 years. But to your point, I agree. There definitely needs some level of governance and ethics because it can also be used in a not so good ways. So there needs to be some caution there as well.
Yeah, and the main thing, I guess, for us as coaches and for any leaders listening is just to be ready for this. Even if you're not enthusiastic about it, it's coming, guys. There's no stopping AI, so we need to be ready. Our people need to be supported and ready, and I think that's where good leadership and helping them as coaches is so important.
Agreed. I would recommend spending 10 to 15 minutes every single day just learning one simple AI thing. That over time will compound. If you spend 10 minutes on YouTube on your commute or wherever you have on your lunch break, over a year, that's going to be hundreds of hours. And you need 400 hours to be an expert. Just spend a little bit of time, get yourself ahead over the next years.
Yeah, get started. Well, that's a good bit of advice. Chris, before I bring us to the close, I always end with the same question. But before I do that, how can people find out more about you and the work you do, or can they connect with you?
Thanks, Lee. So there's two ways. Firstly, my website, which is chrismarchcoaching.com, or one word. Alternatively, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn is my primary social channel. I share insights weekly, sometimes 2 to 3 times a week, just from my own experiences and things that I'm seeing out in the landscape. So you can connect with me on there. It's just LinkedIn /Christopher March. You should be able to find me. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. My DMs are always open, happy to help support you, point you in the right direction.
So it's chrismarchcoaching.com. I'll be sure to share
Correct.
that. Yeah, I'll share that in the notes along with your LinkedIn. So, Chris, my final question is always the same because this is a leadership coaching podcast. So, who is a leader that you admire and why?
Whew. Kobe Bryant is. I wear this band here, so depending if you're seeing it audio, if you're listening to the audio or watching the video. So Kobe Bryant is one of my idols. Growing up, I think I maybe mentioned this at the start, I wanted to be a professional basketball player. Didn't quite make it, or we'd be having a different conversation. However, Kobe Bryant is someone that I've always admired. If any listeners haven't checked out Kobe Bryant, check out Kobe Bryant's Mamba Mentality. It's been a philosophy that I live by. It's, in short, it's about the 1%ers getting better than you were yesterday. And that's a great philosophy for anyone who's looking to get ahead in leadership or in life. Kobe Bryant was an incredible mind on the court and also off the court as well. For people who are not familiar with Kobe, Kobe spoke 5 languages fluently. That just tells you the type of person that Kobe was. And he was an inspiring individual for me and so many of millions of others out in the world. And unfortunately, he was taken from us too soon. So Kobe Bryant is someone that I've always admired just for the way that he turned up as an individual contributor and then as a leader later in his life on the court and also off the court. He transformed himself into something completely different after he stopped playing professional sports. And I think that tells you a little bit about him as a person and as a leader.
Great choice, well said. And that 1%, that philosophy of small changes, layering constantly, really good takeaway. And I think that's a great piece of advice to finish off with. So, Chris, thank you so much for joining me this morning, as it is for you. I don't know if you even had your breakfast yet. I'm really grateful that you've dialed in from around the world to be a guest on Level Up. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Lee.
So that was Chris March. Now, there were parts of that conversation that really reminded me why I got into coaching and also why I always wanted to be in a leadership role. Chris was talking about leadership in service of others and how he brought that philosophy into his coaching, and that his coaching is all about supporting people to be their best and to do their best. I truly believe that all great leaders are coaches, or at the very least they bring coaching into their leadership skills. So my challenge to you, if you're a leader listening to this podcast, is how much do you bring coaching into your leadership? It's very easy when faced with a difficult situation, or if a member of your team is struggling with a decision, for you to dip down and deal with that situation yourself or make that decision for them. And that might even be what they're asking for. But if you could take a pause and bring a coaching mentality into your leadership and support that person to deal with that situation themselves, or help them make the best decision that they can make, that will yield far more benefits for them and you and the team and organisation in the long run. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. If you have, I'm sure your network will too, so please share the podcast widely. And until next time, keep leading, keep learning, and keep levelling up.